The sun rose over a cold field in Prussia. A young boy stood perfectly still. He wore a simple blue uniform. His father stood behind him. The father was a soldier. He looked at the boy straight back. He looked at the boy's quiet face. This was not a playground. This was a new kind of school. Most people today sit in a classroom for 12 years. We follow a bell. We sit in rows. We wait for a teacher to speak. But few people know this system started for a dark reason. That small school in the woods created a world worth trillions of dollars today. Why do we all learn the same way? Who decided that children should sit in rows? Why do we follow a loud bell every hour? To find the answer, we must go back 200 years. We must look at a kingdom that wanted power. This kingdom was called Prussia. Today, we call it Germany. But in the year 1806, Prussia had a big problem. Their army was famous. Their soldiers were tall. Their guns were clean. But they lost a very important battle. Napoleon and the French army arrived. They moved fast. They fought with passion. The Prussian soldiers ran away. The leaders of Prussia were shocked. They sat in a cold room. They looked at their maps. They asked a hard question. Why did our men fail? One man stood up. His name was Johann Gottlieb Fichte. He was a famous thinker. He did not talk about better guns. He did not talk about faster horses. He talked about the minds of children. He said that the soldiers ran because they thought for themselves. They felt fear. They wanted to go home. Fichte wanted a new kind of person. He wanted a person who would never say no. He wanted a person who would follow orders without thinking. He wanted to create a social machine. This machine would start in the classroom. The king listened to Fichte. He liked the idea. He wanted a nation of perfect workers. He wanted a nation of perfect soldiers. So, the government built the first modern schools. These schools were different. In the old days, children learned at home. They learned from their parents. They learned by helping on the farm. They learned when they were curious. But the new Prussian schools changed everything. They were built like factories. They had high walls. They had strict rules. They had a loud bell. Imagine a small girl in 1820. Her name is Martha. She walks to school at 7 a.m. She enters a gray building. A teacher stands at the front. The teacher does not smile. Martha sits in a wooden desk. The desk is bolted to the floor. She cannot move it. She cannot turn her head. She must look at the teacher. If she speaks, she is punished. If she moves, she is punished. The bell rings. Martha stands up. The bell rings again. Martha sits down. This was the birth of the school schedule. It was not made for learning. It was made for obedience. Obedience means doing what you are told. The leaders of Prussia were very smart. They knew that children are naturally curious. Children like to ask why. But the Prussian system wanted to stop the why. They wanted children to accept what. They gave the children a list of facts. The children had to memorize the facts. They had to say the facts back to the teacher. This is called rote learning. It is like a parrot repeating words. If the child repeated the words perfectly, they were a good student. If the child asked a difficult question, they were a bad student. Slowly, the children stopped asking questions. They learned that the bell was the boss. They learned that the teacher was the king. They learned that their own feelings did not matter. The system worked perfectly. 20 years later, the Prussian army was strong again. The soldiers were like robots. They marched together. They fired their guns together. They did not run away. The king was very happy. He had created a factory for humans. He had created the Prussian system. But the story does not stay in Prussia. Across the ocean, the United States was changing. It was the middle of the 1800s. Factories were appearing everywhere. Steam engines were loud. Smoke filled the air. Business owners had a problem. They needed thousands of workers. But they did not want creative workers. They did not want workers who wanted to play. They needed people who could sit at a machine for 10 hours. They needed people who would arrive exactly on time. They needed people who would follow a bell. A man named Horace Mann traveled to Prussia. He was an American leader. He visited the schools. He saw the rows of children. He saw the quiet rooms. He saw the teacher at the front. He was very impressed. He did not see a prison for children. He saw a perfect system for a new world. He went back to America. He told the leaders that America needed this system. He said it would make the country organized. He said it would make the workers reliable. Reliable means you can trust someone to do the same thing every day. Many parents in America hated the idea. They did not want their children in a factory school. Farmers wanted their children at home. They wanted their children to learn about nature. They wanted their children to be free. In some towns, parents took their guns. They stood in front of the schools. They refused to let their children enter. They called the schools state kidnapping. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of conflict. People fought in the streets about these schools. But the factory owners had more power. They gave money to the government. They wanted the system to succeed. They knew that if a child follows a bell for 10 years, they will follow a bell at a factory for 40 years. It was a long-term plan. The government passed new laws. These were called compulsory education laws. Compulsory means you must do it. If a parent kept their child at home, the police would come. The parents would go to jail. The children were forced into the system. By the year 1900, the Prussian system was everywhere. It was in England. It was in France. It was in America. The world was becoming industrial. Everything was about numbers. Everything was about speed. The schools reflected this. They started using grades. A, B, C, D, and F. A child was no longer a person. A child was a letter on a piece of paper. This was like grading meat in a factory. Grade A meat is the best. Grade F meat is bad. The system was sorting people. The schools also started using age groups. In the old days, a 10-year-old learned with a 6-year-old. They helped each other. But the Prussian system changed this. They put all 6-year-olds in one room. They put all 7-year-olds in another room. This is called batch processing. It is how factories make cans of soup. You process one batch at a time. It is efficient. Efficient means doing something quickly without wasting time. But humans are not cans of soup. Every child grows at a different speed. The system did not care. Teachers became like factory workers. They had a manual. They had to teach the same page on the same day. If a teacher in New York was on page 50, a teacher in California was also on page 50. The government wanted control. They wanted to know exactly what every child was thinking. They wanted to control the story of the country. They used history books to make children patriotic. They used science to show the power of industry. The individual was lost. The system was the hero. Let's look at a classroom in 1920. The air is warm. A boy named Tom is looking out the window. He sees a bird. He wants to know how the bird flies. He wants to go outside and look at the wings, but he cannot. The teacher hits a ruler on the desk. Bang! Tom jumps. The teacher tells him to look at the chalkboard. The chalkboard has math problems. Tom must copy the numbers. He must not think about birds. He must think about numbers. The bird flies away. Tom sighs. He returns to his work. This is how the system kills curiosity. Many famous people hated this system. Albert Einstein was a genius. He changed how we see the universe. But he hated school. He said that school was like a graveyard for the mind. He said that teachers were like army sergeants. They shouted. They demanded respect. Einstein wanted to think about light. He wanted to think about time. The school wanted him to memorize dates of battles. He almost failed. He survived because he studied at home. Most children did not have that chance. The system also created a hidden curriculum. A curriculum is a list of things you learn. The regular curriculum is math, reading, and history. But the hidden curriculum is different. It is the lessons you learn without a book. You learn to wait your turn. You learn that your opinion does not matter. You learn that the person with the loud voice is the leader. You learn to stay in your seat. These are the skills of a good employee. They are not the skills of a free thinker. As the years passed, the buildings got bigger. The bells got louder. The tests got harder. In the 1950s, the world entered the Cold War. Countries were competing. They wanted the best engineers. They wanted the best scientists. They used the Prussian system to find them. They used standardized tests. A standardized test is a test that is the same for everyone. It does not matter if you're good at art. It does not matter if you're good at music. If you're not good at the test, the system says you are not smart. Imagine a girl named Sarah. She loves to draw. Her notebooks are full of beautiful trees. Her lines are perfect. Her colors are bright. But she struggles with algebra. She sits in the back of the room. She feels small. When the test results come, she sees a low score. The teacher looks at her with pity. Her parents are worried. Sarah begins to believe she is stupid. But she is not stupid. She is an artist. The Prussian system does not need artists. It needs people who can solve the same problem the same way. The system also changed how we see time. Before the Prussian system, time was natural. You woke up with the sun. You ate when you were hungry. You worked until the job was done. But the school system taught us clock time. We eat because it is 12 p.m. We stop working because it is 5 p.m. We live our lives by the ticking of a machine. We became synchronized. Synchronized means moving at the exact same time. This was necessary for the big factories. If one worker was late, the whole machine stopped. But something is changing now. We no longer live in the world of 1806. We do not live in the world of 1920. We live in the age of information. We have computers in our pockets. We have robots in our factories. The things the Prussian system taught us are no longer useful. A computer can memorize facts better than a human. A robot can follow orders better than a soldier. We do not need people who are like machines. We need people who can think. We need people who can create. Think about your daily life. Do you feel stressed when you are 5 minutes late? Do you feel bored when you have to sit still? Do you wait for someone to tell you what to do? This is the ghost of the Prussian system. It is still inside us. We were trained to be cogs in a wheel. A cog is a small part of a big machine. If the cog is missing, the machine breaks. But you're not a cog. You are a human being. Your mind was made to explore. It was not made to sit in a row for 8 hours a day. In many places, people are trying to change the system. They are building unschools. They are building forest schools. In these places, there are no bells. There are no rows of desks. Children learn by doing. They learn by asking questions. They follow their interests. If a child likes stars, they study space. If a child likes plants, they go into the garden. It looks like chaos to a Prussian teacher, but to a child, it looks like life. They are learning how to learn. This is the most important skill in the modern world. History shows us that systems are created by people. A group of leaders in Prussia made a choice. They chose to prioritize the state over the individual. They chose to prioritize the army over the mind. For 200 years, that choice shaped the world. It built our cities. It ran our factories. It helped us win wars. But every system has an end. The factory model of education is old. It is tired. It does not fit the world we live in today. A man once stood in a field and watched a bird fly. He did not have a bell. He did not have a teacher. He only had his eyes and his mind. He wondered why the bird did not fall. That wonder led to the airplane. That wonder led to the moon. The Prussian system tried to stop that wonder. It tried to make the world predictable. Predictable means you know what will happen next. But the world is not predictable. It is full of surprises. It is full of beauty. As we look at our modern schools, we must ask a question. Are we teaching children to be free? Or are we teaching them to be part of a machine? The walls of the classroom are still there. The desks are still in rows. The bell still rings every hour. We are still living inside a 200-year-old experiment. The experiment was successful. It created the modern world. But perhaps the modern world is ready for something new. Perhaps it is time to leave the factory behind. Imagine a world where school is a place of discovery. Imagine a place where a child's question is more important than a test score. Imagine a place where we do not sort people like meat. In this world, we value the artist as much as the engineer. We value the dreamer as much as the worker. This world is possible. It starts when we understand history. It starts when we see this school factory for what it really is. It was a tool for a kingdom that no longer exists. The boy in the Prussian field is long gone. The soldiers are gone. The kingdom is gone. But the school remains. It is a very strong ghost. It follows us into our offices. It follows us into our homes. It tells us to be quiet. It tells us to fit in. But you do not have to fit in. You can choose to be curious. You can choose to ask why. The first step to freedom is realizing that the walls are not as strong as they look. The door is not locked. You can walk out of the factory anytime you want. Think about your own time in school. Did you feel like a student or a worker? Did you ever feel like the system was trying to change who you are? Many people feel this way. They feel a sense of loss. They feel that they lost their spark. But that spark is still there. It is hidden under years of bells and grades. You can find it again. You can start learning for yourself. You can follow your own path. History is a story of change. And the next chapter of the story is yours to write. The Prussian leaders wanted a nation that would never rebel. They wanted a nation that would never think. But they forgot one thing. The human spirit is very hard to break. Even in the strictest school, children still whisper. They still draw on the margins of their books. They still dream of the world outside the window. That dream is more powerful than any system. It is the dream that creates the future. It is the dream that will eventually build a better way to learn. As we finish this story, look around you. Look at the clocks. Look at the schedules. Look at the way people move together. The Prussian system is all around us. It is the invisible architecture of our lives. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You realize that the world does not have to be this way. It was designed this way. And if it was designed, it can be redesigned. We can build a world that values humans more than machines. We can build a world where learning never ends. Do you think this system still shapes our lives today? Does the factory model still exist in your workplace or your local school? Write your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your story. And if this history surprised you, the history of the 8-hour workday may surprise you even more. That is a story for another time. For now, remember to stay curious. Do not let the bell tell you when to think. The world is much bigger than a classroom. There is so much more to discover.